even at the zero stage of anything to discuss around philosophy and stuff. And I wanted to start. And this is coincidentally the book that I've been reading last week. So I thought, okay, I just stumbled upon it and I just thought, okay, I'll just be a mere observer and see how these forums go. So I'm absolutely shit scared right now because I have no idea what is to be discussed. I just love the book and I'm like more than three-fourths done. And I thought that I'll just see as to what people discuss and how do we take that forward. So I literally wanted to be more of a listener today.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah. That's fine. I mean, we only did like half of it last week, but I'm happy to do, well, how far did you say you were?
So his dad is dead and she's written a letter to her mom, which she hasn't taken down well. Yeah, I'm more or less there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let me see. Okay. Why don't we do this? I'm going to go to you. All right. Now back to you. Okay. And now for this here. Okay. I think, yeah, we should be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we only did a little bit. Last week, and I think this is the only one week. I mean, this is going to be the end of this covering Fun Home. I've already read it before.
Okay.
I think this is a wonderful, wonderful graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly so rich, and there's a lot of great thematic, psychological depth to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt there's so many themes to cover and to talk about. The relationship with her and her parents, and of course the sociological and psychological exploration of
Right.
the family and herself, and how she relates to well, her explorations of herself and her sexuality and her issues.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot to cover here. There's
Mm-hmm.
certainly a lot to talk about, and I always, whenever we do these comics
Mm-hmm.
um, discussions, I try to talk about everything. I try to talk how it was created, the little background, if I know some of the background of it, um, some of the choices made in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like the artistry of it. Uh, so yeah, what would you what stands out for you in the so far that you've read about it?
Uh, so there's this, of course, the things that you mentioned about her family and her struggles with the whole thing. I felt that personally, for me, it was a lot of in-depth finding of mythology that she would just drop in the character. There were so many Greek mytho references that she would just throw in, that my dad just was like this or that. And then for me it was just a spiral, going on to Google and reading about more of that and then coming back to it. So that was one thing that really stood out for me, that beyond just the story there were a lot of references that I now, for example, there are these, because his dad is into artifacts, there is this reference of, I'm forgetting the name, but there is also reference of Chip and Dale, which I went back and read that it's 17th 18th century, that there was a wood make that was identified by three predominant designings. One was Chippendale and the other two were I'm just forgetting, and she mentions two of those. So those kind of detailing, um,
Hmm.
that is in the description. As a story, as a character, what I found really poignant was that at some point in time she would find a lot of resemblance with her dad, like in terms of how she looked when she was young versus how he when he was young. And there was a slight bit of, I felt that glee that she looked like him. And then of course there was this whole hatred that she had within her for him as well. So I felt that that was a very fine balance in whatever I have read, that when he dies and how she and her sibling just look at each other and just grin. That's a sense of relief. And yet when she talks about him, there are these slight like she romanticizes the idea of him, and yet she hates him.
Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a complicated relationship. I think all families really are complicated. There's so many different conflicting emotions going through all families, especially parents and children. You know, it's such a combination of all sorts of things. But yeah, it's impossible to deny the connection there. I mean, it's such
Hmm.
a primal connection for anybody, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, especially when it's people who can't fully express themselves, which
Yeah.
is a big theme that runs through the book.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of what's coming out is she is discovering herself
Mm-hmm.
through the medium
Mm-hmm.
of her relationship with her parents,
Mm-hmm.
especially her relationship with her father.
Mm-hmm.
That effectively, like negative space, it defines the outline that she occupies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you differentiate yourself from your parents
Yeah.
as you grow,
Yeah.
and you discover, you know, that by differentiation you are bound by their own self, because that will, you know, outline, you know, the limits that you are going to that you're going to be.
Yeah.
And you know, discovering that and exploring that and figuring that out is a long process, and can sometimes be very painful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And certainly there's a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms
Yeah.
that the entire family is going through here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of well, the lack of authenticity, lack of you know, good faith, lack of
Mm-hmm.
honesty
Mm-hmm.
about who they are and their needs and their desires and their wants, and it's causing a lot of difficulty
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like
Interesting
just
that.
living this again as you're shifting through the screen. So, David, just help me understand. So, how do you take all of these discussions forward? Like, this is my first time. So, whatever I missed, in case you can summarize a bit about the background or whatever is your point of view on this, that'll really mean a lot.
Yeah, yeah. uh So, I mean, do you know much about, you know, well, Alison Bechdel? I don't actually know very much about her. I mean, she, you know, started. I mean, mostly what I know is from reading the book, actually.
Actually,
But
funny is that before I read this book, I came across her through the Bechdel test that we used to, read often about through movies. That certain movie you would go through a Bechdel test
yeah,
if there
yeah,
are two female protagonists who do not talk about men, but them and their choices and
yeah,
their hobbies, etc. So that is where I had first found the reference,
sure,
and then I stumbled upon this.
sure, sure. Yeah. Well, she started a comic strip. I think it was in her college days.
Yeah,
Uh,
Dykes,
I used to watch
Dykes.
out for.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the one. uh, and that's where the Bechdel test first appeared.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, I think this is probably the one that she's going to be best known for, though, is Fun Home.
Yeah.
And I mean, this certainly, you know, won a whole bunch of awards when it came out, and
Uh-huh.
it's certainly well deserved. I think it's such a great book. I recommend it to everybody. Everybody should read it.
Right. Right.
um, I mean, you know, I mean, she's obviously very much in the autobiographical
Mm-hmm.
comics
Mm-hmm.
genre. You know, I mean, I guess the main person there is Art Spiegelman with
Yeah.
his mouse.
Of
With
course.
yeah, that one. But so many people do autobiography.
Yeah.
It's just a long list. But this is certainly a great example of it. Um, you know, and then there's the art. I think there's a lot of really great just just cartooning. I think her
Mm-hmm.
cartooning is just wonderful. Just the way
Mm-hmm.
she uses the format.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about there, I think. Um, and I like the 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 modality that she has taken on in telling her story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a straightforward narrative. It's not
Yeah.
linear. I mean,
Yeah.
it's modal.
Yeah.
It just like um, changes scene depending on how it is she's telling the story, and every new facet, it reveals a new aspect of the theme
Mm-hmm.
rather than just tell the story linearly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit like memory,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good artistic choice actually,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it makes it more compelling, I think.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree to that.
Yeah, it's like mirroring the way memory works,
Yeah.
because there's no real revelation. I mean, she tells you right up at front, like everything
Absolutely.
that's going to happen. You know that her father committed suicide, and everything that she's going to talk about is all about that story.
Yeah.
But she's just going to talk about it as things progress.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think she also did a second edition where her protagonist is her mom, but I'm yet to read about that.
Hmm.
That one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's never clean. It's never because human relationships are never clear
Mm-hmm.
cut. They're
Mm-hmm.
always messy, and they're always
Yeah.
mixed up with so much emotion and so much
Mm-hmm.
outside context of sociological aspects and your own psychological makeup and your background and your experience and your expectations of other people,
Mm-hmm.
and that just creates a mess, and it's just hard to come up with the reality of the truth of
Right.
anything. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she talks about that right in the book itself, actually.
Yeah.
And there's so much to go on a hearsay, and there's memories. I mean, she's telling the story of her parents, she's telling the
Mm-hmm.
story of how they met, and their history together. And that's a lot of what life is, really. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's never clear cut. There's always ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
And things that like we all accept, like just the rituals, like going through the funerals of a loved one, and what happens when you have to do that, which everybody does,
Mm-hmm.
and how to go through that, and rituals of living in a family, and she talks about that. The ideas that her father liked the idea of having a family more than actually the experience of having a family.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Right.
you're more interested in the pretense of it, you're more interested in the illusion of the,
Yeah.
but
So the romantic idea of having a family is what he had in his mind, but never wanted to go through the the day-to-day functioning of it,
yeah,
right?
and so there's a lot of that too. She's talking about that too, and also because a lot of what the experience that they're going through is the expectation of the society and the time they're living with. uh, well, to be very blunt, you're expected to be heterosexual.
Yeah.
The society expects everybody to be
Right.
heterosexual, and to just get along in that time and place, you just go along with it. You have to put up that illusion. You
Right.
have to. You can't just advertise yourself
Yeah.
as being otherwise, because there are severe consequences to that. And there's a lot of that in the book. So there's kind of that mirror. Sometimes the illusion is fulfilling a psychological need, but sometimes it's filling a social need.
Right.
And especially in that. But she also says, okay, but if you are going to do that, there's going to be a consequence to it. There's going to be a psychological consequence. There's going to be a
Yeah.
social consequence. No matter what you do, no matter what you choose,
Yeah.
and you have to be conscious and aware of that. And a lot of these choices are not, free
Yeah.
choices. Sometimes you're trapped. Like
Yeah.
the story she's telling of her father was a man who was trapped by the
Yeah.
time and place that he lived in. He could not express himself
Yeah.
correctly, and that caused a lot of damage and a lot of trauma to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that in the book.
Yeah. That I completely agree to that. And the way you said that, there are certain frames that we have to fit in, when we live in the society. In this, it's very explicitly said that how there are a lot of things that he does to kind of make him also believe that he can be a heterosexual. Like the whole letter writing to his wife, where he's comparing himself to Fitzgerald, Scott, and Zelda, that, I see Zelda in you, and I'm, Scott, again, romanticizing. But I thought that that was also a very desperate attempt for him to fit in as a normal heterosexual couple.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a little bit of, wishful thinking on his part, like
Yeah.
willing himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, you think that like a lot of what he was doing with trying to pursue so much literature and art
Hmm.
was trying to affect that demeanor,
Hmm.
that aspect of being a sophisticate, being a literary
Yeah.
intellectual, and a lot of that was, the artifice of it. A lot of
Yeah.
it was the pretense of it.
Hmm.
Um, and you wonder what would he have been if he were allowed to fully express himself.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's one of those unanswerable questions.
Hmm.
But you know, clearly he was not doing well. He was obviously extremely depressed and just
Hmm.
was finding it very difficult to cope
Hmm.
with the situation that he found himself really trapped in. Not just the world and the community that he was in, but also the marriage and the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, something that you mentioned earlier also, that uh, in a family, there are lots of gray shades that each person would have, and because of the different kinds of roles that we play. So here, this character, this her father, I could not put him outrightly into a villainous character, though he had a lot of shades to it, and which is what is us in real lives, like the whole family that we have no choice but to be born in and live with. We have different shades of it, and we go through these sinusoidal waves of being good, being bad, being irritating, being driving somebody mad, unless somebody is outrightly criminal and you can really categorize that person as a villain. It's very difficult in real life to really not have these shades.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the difference between art and, I think, genre.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's no simple answers, and
Right.
there aren't any simple good guys and bad guys in life. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
just people doing their best to get along. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, no, I don't think we could say he was a villain.
Mm.
He was just a man. He was just a
Yeah.
human being, doing the best he could, and with the
Yeah.
skills that he had available to him.
Yeah. Trapped in a wrong time, in a wrong place.
So it is a tragic story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But really, yeah, I think we've all got our stories.
That's
Everybody's.
true.
You know, I've heard a good theory that genre really is taking one part of life, one part of reality, and focusing only on that one thing, whatever it is. If it's horror, it's just about fear. If it's an erotic story, it's just about eroticism. If it's adventure, it's just about adventure. If it's a mystery, it's just about that one thing, throwing out every other part of life. But when what life really is all genres happening simultaneously in the same story. All of life is a mystery, is an adventure, is a sex story, it
Yeah.
is yeah. I mean, it's all together. Well, one thing. It's all horror. It's all fantasy. It's all coming together at one, happening at the same time. But when you do that, it's too much, because life is too much. It's really hard to do that in a story or a movie that's
Hmm.
narratively satisfying, because life can never be narratively satisfying. There's never a a definitive ending. There's never a lesson unless you impose on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow the rules of a narrative tale.
Yeah.
But that, I think, the best art is the art that's trying to uh, get to those core truths of the human experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that would still be somebody's personal view of that human experience, right? So I might have experienced it, I might not have. And yet, because somebody has personally experienced it, that's what makes it enriching. And as a reader, I enjoy it. Like, I would not have even 5% of, what her family was in terms of her experiences. And yet it's it's so moving when she, describes all of that. Like, for her, maybe she thought that it would be a way for her father to redeem himself if she came out of the closet and he accepted it, but that that also didn't happen. And sometimes you root for her that something good could come out of it. And just like it happens in real life, it's you don't win every time. Sometimes you keep losing all through, and you just wonder what is the whole meaning of life.
Yeah, we want to impose meaning on it. We want to get meaning from it. It hurts if you don't have the chance to get a lesson
Yeah.
from the things we all go through. If you
Yeah.
can't go through um, a, a bad situation or any encounter with a with a with a situation, and then not walk away from it having learned something, having decided, oh well, this is what the meaning of it is. But yeah, that's entirely on us
Yeah.
to impose that. But I think it's necessary. I think it's something that we all do, and I think we all have to, because
Yeah.
without that, then it just remains like that lump in our back of our minds,
Yeah.
unprocessed and just burning away, and that
Yeah.
causes a lot of damage. So you have to somehow process it. You have to resolve it in some way that you can live with it.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to do, and a lot of people don't do it very well, and that causes a lot of problems. But yeah, you want to impose, you want to derive some purpose for bad things that happen to you.
Yeah. It's just that in life, when you're going through that grind, you really don't turn back and say, oh, that was a good life lesson, because you are so much absorbed and taken in by the, let's say, something downhill that's happening, and you completely absorbed by it. I personally would not never look at it and say that, oh, wow, that teaches me a good lesson. Maybe if I'm a hero in somebody's story from extraterrestrial world, that person might write like that this is the lesson that you get out of it. Or maybe 10 years down the line, when I'm just sitting and thinking, I could jot down that, okay, these were the you know areas or the points in my life when I really hit rock bottom, and this is how I emerged. So okay, this is the pattern that I have, perseverance or whatever. But when this shit is happening, personally, I don't think that I have ever stopped and just mulled over it, that what can I what is the moral of this story. At that point in time, I'm just desperate to get out of that situation and just be as normal as I can as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because intellectually, you have a choice as to how you want to respond to something, how you would like to react,
Hmm.
what your options are. You know that, but it doesn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah,
It's hard to think about that. Well, what would be the best way for me to react to this? You don't think about that like that. You just react.
that's right.
It's just an automatic process. But
Yeah.
you do have a choice. It's just hard to remember that.
Exactly.
You're in the middle of it, and it's just all happening, and you just go with your instincts. You just go with your gut, and you feel sad or happy or angry, or it just wells up.
Mm-hmm.
You're experiencing it subjectively, and it's very difficult to be able to step outside of that and look at it objectively and figure out, okay, what would be the best, most optimal way I can react to this situation. And
Right.
very, very few people are able to do that.
Alrighty.
Yeah, yeah. I just think the way she tells her story, this story here, is just very masterful. Um, it's just so very sure of the grasp of the narrative that she's got a hold of. You know, she just brings you through it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
facet at a time, one aspect at a time. And she puts you there, like, you know, the idea of the experience of growing up in the house and
Mm-hmm.
being a child in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just very, very well done.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, her art style is not like entirely the most realistic, but it's as good as it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's evocative. It puts you right in there. It puts you
Yeah.
in that. Yeah, it's a bit impressionistic, but I think that that lends it kind of more of a relatability.
Mm-hmm. You're right. You're right. Like nobody's absolutely out of the world in terms of, being drop dead gorgeous or handsome. They're just regular people like us, and
Yeah. Well,
and
I
you'd be
think
able
I
to associate with that.
last week I talked about it. Like, if you know, um, if you bought, I think I made this analogy last week.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy a compact disc, I don't think they make those anymore, but remember those. If you buy a compact disc and it's just a singer songwriter girl with an acoustic guitar, and that's it, and the whole CD is nothing but a girl and an acoustic guitar, even though she was obviously playing in a high tech studio and there's high tech
Yeah.
recording done on it, but there's still that authenticity there of just a girl and a voice and a guitar and
Mm-hmm.
nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I think is going on with Alison Bechdel. It's very raw, it's very emotional, it's very authentic. You know, there's no artifice on it, even though it's the production of the art is clearly a first rate professional, presentation, but the authenticity of the performance is still raw and handmade and done, as low tech as it gets. Yeah, I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just in her case, it's just her and a pen
Yeah.
and one color,
Yeah.
but that authenticity still comes through.
Yeah. I have been on a uh, graphic novel spree, and
Huh?
everything from Alan Moore to Art Spiegelman to now her, and the lots
Huh?
and lots more, and the variety that you come across when people draw,
Yeah,
and there is a thing, even if it's a very simplistic drawing, there are some things that just draw you to it, like this whole panel which is there. I remember as a kid we would be hiding and still wanting to see why are our parents arguing,
yeah,
and these simple things which are so beautifully drawn,
yeah,
where kids are just curious and trying to figure out what the hell is happening.
yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah, that's great. No, well, I'm glad you came here. This is our, yeah, we've been doing this meeting Friday night meetings. Well, we started. Well, we did From Hell, and we've done Alan Moore. We've done Automatic Kafka. We did one day of Love and Rockets.
okay.
Yeah, I think we started like 3 months ago or so.
Oh.
I'm forgetting something. We did something else. I've forgotten. But
Mm-hmm.
as I always say, I think the it's a magical medium.
Yeah.
There's so much out there, and there's so much that can be done. It's not the same as a movie, and it's not the same as reading a book.
Right.
It's its own thing, and it
Yeah.
accomplishes its own effects. And when it's done well, it's magical. It's such a
Absolutely.
magical medium that you can do so much with, and there's so many different types of comics out there. It's every bit as expressive as a movie or a novel, and it does very different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a reading experience. It's not a passive experience like a movie or a television show.
Absolutely.
You're just taking it in. It does what it does, and you have to watch it. But this is a reading experience. You
Yeah.
have to participate. You have to
Yeah.
contribute, and it is a very different. It's its own genre, and I've read comics my whole life, and I've loved it, and that's why I started this group. I wanted to see if we wanted to go over some of the great comics that are out there, and I've been very happy so far with what we've been doing, and I hope this continues. Well, I know I'm planning to continue. Yeah, so I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad I'd like to see if you know we together, the rest of our group, can come up with new ideas of what we want to come up with. So far, I've just been choosing kind of randomly.
Okay.
Uh, we've been doing a mix of things that I've read before and things that I haven't read before. Um, I've read From Hell before.
Okay.
I wanted people to get a hold of this and experience this. But anyway, we'll talk about that when we're done here. Uh, yeah, there's so much to talk about. I think there's the themes of you know having to hide, especially sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just obviously just such a central theme of the book is
Yeah.
is sexuality. Um, how a person fully comes into one's own sexuality, and you don't have to have the same experience of of being gay,
Mm-hmm.
to see a lot of the universality
Mm-hmm.
of the story. I mean, everybody on Earth, no matter who you are, at one point, you have to, just by the process of becoming an adult, you have to come to embrace your sexuality. You have to explore your sexuality. You have to understand what it is, and and that's a very different process for everyone. But everybody goes through it, and we all have to. And just by reading someone else's story, you see the parallels and the universality that she's talking about. Everybody is going to have a different story, and at the same time, it's the same story. It happens to all of us, and
Yeah.
we all have to experience that.
Sorry about that.
And our relationship to our family, our relationship to our friends, relationship in our society that we find ourselves in. And then we're all going to come to, everybody's different. And that's why we read literature. It's why we read movies and stories.
Yeah.
We want to get of the perspective of the human experience from a different vantage point, from a vantage point of somebody else's. And by the relief, by the contrast, we get insights into our own story.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole purpose of it. That's the whole purpose of art. I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that summarizes it very well.
Yeah. 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 I mean, there's so much, going on here. There's so much confusion and
Yeah.
fumbling and misunderstanding and not understanding of, why people are the way they are and why
Mm-hmm.
things are the way they are and what that's done to you and how that and the way forward. And that's just the situation we all go through with everybody, with our families and with our peer groups and our societies, and we've all got our stories, all of
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely.
you know and that's one of the great things about art and reading stories is to be able to get involved in that. Hmm. Okay, so chapter 4. Are you up to this part at least?
Yeah.
You are. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. There's always some things I would want to point out. Hmm.
Hmm.
There's yeah, because it does take a while before you figure out exactly what's been going on, because that's a lot of the way she experienced it, because it
Yeah.
was always this hidden subterranean life that her father was living that was never explicitly detailed to the children as they were growing up for clearly obvious reasons. Um, but yeah, you kind of do figure out what's going on with all of it.
Hmm.
And yeah, navigating, yeah, how to be, yeah, there's a lot of her and her father together
Yeah.
figuring out what, really what they are. Even he, a full grown adult male, he truthfully, and it's not really his fault in a lot of ways, he truthfully never really did figure out what,
Mm-hmm.
who and what he was. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of the tragedy of him.
Yeah, I think this line was really really stood out for me when I was reading that. I think he was attempting to express something feminine through me,
Right.
while this girl was all about being as far away from being feminine.
Yeah. Well,
So
there's some this is so rich to talk about, yeah, because yeah, you're getting into not just them individually, but also
mm,
the society that they're in, and all these concepts of masculinity and
mm,
femininity, and the small boxes that we put people in. I mean, those are obviously very huge topics in this
yeah,
day and age today, but back then, things were so much more smaller, and
yeah,
your options were so much more limited, and the difficulties that caused us, we now know, yeah, it's terrible to try to push people into such very small narrow boxes that do not fit
yeah,
everybody. uh, and what can you do? How do you skirt along the edges of that? How do you make peace with what society expects of you, and your own inner directives, your own inner spirit. And you can see a lot of the two of them, and really all of them, really
yeah,
everybody in the family, trying to navigate their way and figuring out who they are and how they fit, and having various degrees of success in that pursuit. Um, yeah, clearly, yeah, these traditional standard boxes didn't fit any of them,
mm-hmm.
and yet, in a lot of ways, that was very much what was desired. Certainly, he wanted to, you know, fit in with a larger society that he wasn't even born into, like the 19th century aristocratic intellectual world, which I mean, he all he could do was do the best he could as an independent, but clearly that wasn't the environment he was living in. But also trying to match the expectations of society in terms of just being alive, being successful, being a family man, being a good provider and a good husband, and and being heterosexual.
Yeah,
And no one, and there's never any guidebooks. It's just about you either are according to everybody's expectations, and if you're not, don't expect any help. You're on your own.
mm-hmm.
You just have to kind of figure it out on your own. And that's and what we've seen is that just causes a huge number of issues for people. Yeah, I mean, he didn't have
That's
any
right.
choices. He had, very few choices. And when she
Yeah.
got when she got to college, it was the 70s, and she realized that there was a lot more uh, choices that she had available to her that he
Mm-hmm.
just didn't. And so, and still, it's so much better. It's Things are so much better today. And one thing that I was thinking of while I was reading this, we're doing a reread of this. One thing I was thinking of, well, we can truly, honestly, we can say that things are truly a lot better today. They truly are. They really are. But I still have to say, I still don't think we're where we need to be.
Yeah.
I don't think we're anywhere close to where we want to be.
True.
Not by
So.
the year 2020. We're nowhere near. We still have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I would still say we do.
Yeah.
It's still causing so much trouble and so much problems, and it just shouldn't be. We should be a lot further along than we are.
Yeah. The sheer fact that we are sitting and discussing about this, and this feels normal to discuss about it. However, when somebody passes by and he or she doesn't fit the norms of what a regular person should be, our heads still turn. Just emphasizes the fact that we haven't yet reached where we should be. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we are trying to adjust and make ourselves believe that, yeah, we are more accepting, but we still have to have these discussions, which means that it's not the norm of the day.
That's
we
right.
have to we have to carve out time. We have to invite people have to come onto a group, and there should be a safe forum for people to discuss this. So definitely a long way to go.
That's right. Mm. Yeah, I don't know. One thing I always get from all this is just one thing I get when I mean one thing I get from hearing people's stories of their childhood and how they, like, for example, here, they're going on this camping trip, you know, um, but we talked about this a little. It's part of that is the artifice, the structure of being a family, and you just do the family things. You don't question that. It's like, when I was a kid, we went to Disneyland. Not
Mm-hmm.
just the things you're supposed to do when you're a child and you're a family. You know, well, the point I'm getting at is it just seems to me kind of arbitrary. Like you're just accepting the standard thing to do just because it's the thing to do. It's what's expected of you. You know, I mean, it's not questioned. You don't have to ask the question. Should we, go on this camping trip? Should we, do these family outings to visit
Mm-hmm.
New York or something? It's just the things you do, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just like society has decided those things for you. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to bother questioning it. You don't have to bother. Well, what should we do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been taken care of. Society hands that to you. It's a template. You just have to fill the template.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of the people actually, I'm going to figure out how to say this correctly because I know I have it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what I think 20th century literature was, and I say 20th century literature, and I say the past tense was, because I don't think it is anymore. But I think 20th century literature was getting at, and also a lot of 20th century film and cinema was getting at, was a lot of what existentialist philosophy was getting at, which was the core meaninglessness of modern life. a lot of the great literature and cinema and art was explicitly about the meaninglessness of all of this artifice, of all the family, the two kids, the two-car garage, and the picket fence house, and 1950s conformity, and a lot of what the great artists and thinkers and writers were talking about was the core emptiness at the heart of all that. And I do say the 20th century, and I use the past tense because I don't think there's anything like that today in our movies, in our television, in our popular culture, in our art. I think we've lost all that completely.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
really do. I really do. I don't think anything like that is about. I don't. And that's completely out of fashion, and I think there are no books or movies or television shows that talk about this in the same way. What's happened, I think, in the last 40 years is that we've lost that kind of social critique in our popular culture. I don't think that's even anywhere close to.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last time you had any of that in popular culture, I think really was the 70s. I think since then, I really do. I think since then it's really just been people consider movies and art to be entertainment and nothing more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking as you're saying this, as what when you would say about this 20th century themes, industrialization had just begun, and so people were amassing obviously a lot of materialistic things that was giving them pleasure, and there was a clear cut segment which we called hippies who didn't want to be tied down to these norms of having a picketed fence house or having children or staying for that matter at one particular place.
That's right.
uh,
Yeah.
so what did we exactly miss? What happened? It's
Yeah.
also because I think with World War One, two, and lots of famines happening, people dying, people would always have a reason to come out of that massive sorrow with something materialistic, which is something we are devoid of. And I'm just thinking right now, sitting while discussing with you, that today, so I consume a lot of world movies, which is very far away from the signature Hollywood movies of now. And the themes would vary from would vary not from somebody, it would be more of internal struggles, let's say. The only thing that I can think of very recent movie in terms of uh, you know um, giving it all away was, I think, Into the Wild. I don't think after that I have seen
Ah,
any more movie which has shaken me like that.
ah,
Today, if I see a movie like that, I would just appreciate it for the romantic notion that the protagonist is having, and then I would go back to being what I am.
yeah.
That would not inspire me, but that movie had stirred something. I remember we were like
Yeah. Yeah.
college is when I had watched it, and
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, what am I doing? Yeah, so that you're right. It somehow the cultural shift and the representations have become very linear, so to say. That there are certain milestones to be achieved in varied ways, and this is and around that you try to weave a story, and boom, you have a movie.
Yeah.
L- Soul stirring movies would be very few every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I always actually a few weeks ago we were talking about if we want to. I mean, this is supposed to be comics, but I don't mind if we wanted to do movies once in a while. There's a lot of movies I would love to see someday.
Yeah, I would totally
I
love to.
wouldn't mind that
I'm
at
a
all.
movie buff, like big time, and
Oh, really?
I keep scouting for movies that I have not heard, which is not run of the mill and
Yeah.
mainstream,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I keep exploring that.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies I'd love to see. Yeah, but I would. Yeah, we talked about that. Let's see if together as a group we wanted to do
Sure.
some movies. I don't mind. I'm pretty flexible. uh, mm, let me see. One thing that I think comes through is, how, she talks about this, that the group, the family was like
Mm-hmm.
an artist. Well, it was like an artist's colony,
Mm-hmm.
that everybody had their own pursuits.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm just one page before this.
yeah,
Yeah.
that they are all, well, the idea of creativity is just being a part of life, just being a natural expression. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even questioned. It's just automatically assumed
Mm-hmm.
that, you're going to be an artist, a musician, yeah, and everybody, had their own certain stuff to go through. Uh, yeah, I mean, all of them. The two of them met, acting in a play
Mm-hmm.
in college.
Yeah.
She continued acting. She continued right, playing music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I kind of like this one where, the Mr. Toad's caravan, which is of course isn't described as being yellow, and he can't handle it that she's she's coloring it the wrong color.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, yeah, I really like this. Let's see what else is there to. Hmm. Yeah, the idea that, when she finally comes out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's obviously such a huge development in for anybody, but she expects this is going to be, an explosion to everybody, and as it turns out, she gets upstaged
Yep.
by her father in this, and suddenly she's not the focus of this. It's all about her father, with the
Yeah.
revelation of what's been happening with
Yeah.
him, and all the fire and energy,
Yeah.
comes goes off of her that she was expecting onto all back to him.
Yeah.
She's entirely upstaged,
Right.
which
Which was amusing because this sort of rivalry usually happens amongst siblings, right? When one sibling would just steal the thunder away, and the other one would just be sulking that, come on, it was my birthday, why did you have to sing so well, or whatever,
yeah,
something like that. And this is between her and her father. So when I was also reading, I was kind of chuckling in my head.
yeah, she just is constantly being overshadowed by the in majesty and grandeur
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
of her father. And mm, And so many literary references here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so extremely rich. But that's definitely one thing I like about it. It's just the idea that you don't even question,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what's called the life of the mind. I mean, again, and there's another thing that's entirely out of fashion today. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I've not going, not in the cards for me to be a parent, but
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't imagine, being a kid at this point. I mean, I grew up reading books, and I grew up in the library basically.
Uh-huh.
And that's just, I mean, I can't imagine what kids today are going through. And you read all the articles about short attention span, and how just their phones and video games are just causing havoc with their attention spans, and it's just amazing. um, I just one thing I do hear, though, I hear
Mm-hmm.
people who are executives at Apple and Microsoft and like Amazon, the people who are, actually, at the high level, you know, I've heard, they themselves, they do not allow their own children to have a phone or spend a lot of time on a computer. They don't,
Mm-hmm.
because they know what the damage is.
Yeah.
They don't allow their own young children to have phones and to have a lot of computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
They know
Yeah.
this isn't the way to grow up. Yeah. They know what's going on. They know the damage you're causing. you're talking to somebody, one of those few oddballs who doesn't own a phone.
Wow.
I don't own one of those things. Whatever they are, a smartphone. Yeah, I don't know. I've never owned one.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've
I wish
never
I could go back to that.
never saw the need. I never saw how it was going to improve my life.
Mm-hmm.
I just never saw that. I never saw that, how was it going to make my life better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just never figured that out. So I never got one.
That's awesome. If that works for you, there's no questioning it.
And I've never played one of those video games, whatever they are.
Oh, that even I haven't. Yeah.
Whatever. I don't even know what they are. I don't. I
Yeah.
swear, I don't even know what they like. What are they? I've heard about them. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you can't escape it. But I don't.
Yeah.
I don't understand any of this. It's called an Xbox
Yeah.
or a PlayStation or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I know nothing about any of it. I mean, I know they're so popular, but I don't know. I've never played
Yeah.
any of them, so I don't know nothing about them. Nothing.
That's fantastic. That's the perfect place where you can say ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not in the cards for me to become a parent, but I
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what I would say to any kid growing up today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I've
Would have no idea.
I can't think of it either.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So So yeah, this is a great book. I know you're. I know. So you're going to. You're well. You haven't read it before. So
No, I hadn't
okay.
read
Yeah.
it before.
Um. So as I said, yeah, maybe we could talk about what we want to do coming up. Oh no, I think I've already chosen Beautiful Darkness. That's next week.
Beautiful Darkness. Let
Beautiful
me see.
Darkness. That's on the
Okay.
calendar. I already chose it.
Okay. Great. Then let
Beautiful
me just
Darkness,
source it before the
which I have
next week.
not read. That one I have not read.
Mm-hmm.
Um. What would you want to suggest? Do you have any ideas? Let me do that. Let me stop sharing.
I read like a month back or so the Encyclopedia of Storytelling.
The
I'm
the
forgetting the name of the author. The Encyclopedia of Storytelling, I think.
Huh.
And there was something in that book that just stirred me. Like, obviously, amazing drawing, but the core of the book was storytelling, which was so beautiful. Like, the book at every page, it justified that why was it the Encyclopedia of Storytelling. It talked about Eskimos, and there was a lot of mythology and magic involved in it, of back in the days, and it was phenomenal. So I think if we
Huh.
can get a hold of that book, to read it. It's amazing.
Okay. Can you type the name in the chat?
Yeah, I'll just confirm it once more.
It's a possibility. I might know it. If I go to you.
Yeah, Isabel Greenberg. The Encyclopedia of Early Earth, sorry.
Yeah. If I. Huh. Well, I won't do a deep research now, but I will do a quick Google and see. Okay. Okay, I can see it here. We'll have to see. Huh. Okay. No, I've never heard of it, but okay. I'll definitely see about this one. I will.
Sure.
There's a lot out there. There's so
Yeah.
much out there. We talked a few weeks ago. If anybody has any suggestions, I take suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know,
Which one did you say is for the next time?
Beautiful Darkness. Yeah, that's actually on the calendar already. I think that's
Okay.
been scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, I'll provide the CBR file if
Mm-hmm.
anybody needs it.
Mm-hmm.
It could get expensive if we keep buying books every week.
Yeah, that is true.
Somebody suggested there are things like, okay, like From Hell. That's a long book. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that took us 8 weeks to do the
Mm-hmm.
entire of it. So I'm trying to see if we can do small things,
Mm-hmm.
but that we can do in 1 or at most 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But if we did, but there's so many great stuff out there that, a few weeks ago, somebody mentioned Sandman, which I've read already,
Yeah, me too.
and but that would take a long time to go
That
through.
would take a, yeah.
So
Yeah. I recently again read Alan Moore's collection of 10,
Alan,
10 graphic novels that somebody has brilliantly found obscure, graphic novels. Sometimes, he would just do it for charity. Sometimes he would just do because he was, so vocal about, let's say, the gay rights movements, or the whole the massacre that happened in that club. uh, there are a lot of those nuggets of stories, and then this person, I'm forgetting his name, the editor, has given the background of the story and why was it necessary. So a lot of things that you miss out on, referencing, because these are just 4 or 5 page graphic novels. When you read through the details of it as to what was the background, what stirred him to write it, you just get such a good grasp of the whole thing. It's amazing.
okay, all right. Anyone in particular?
Let me just quickly Google that. जस्ट a sec. बाबा, वो एलन मूर की कौन सी बुक थी कलेक्शन? Brighter than you think. Brighter than you think. Thank you. So this is, you can check, brighter than you think. So there are many stories in that, 10 short works, and I think one that stood out for me. Just a sec. So there's one where he talks about the whole journey of how
Mm.
people start with, the world started with two men loving each other, being absolutely fine, and then we came to this era where people just massacred everybody, and people just killed the ones who were into gay rights movement and all. And then the same angels kind of keep talking about how the world is eventually going to get better, etc. I think that was a beautiful story. I'm doing a very bad job in trying to describe that to you. I keep coming back.
I have a long list, of things that I've always wanted to read someday that I've
Yeah,
never read and I would like to get to.
yeah, it's a long list, I'm sure.
Um, Not just comics, but movies and other stuff. This has been a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying the way this has been going for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The From Hell read was a really that was a journey. Yeah.
I'm glad I stumbled upon it. I'm hoping that next time there would be more people and we can,
Oh yeah,
I would
yeah.
just,
We do get regulars.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great then.
Mm, I think there's a few. Sometimes you see on websites, the top 100
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
movies everybody should watch, or some 200 or something like that. The best
mm-hmm.
or the best TV shows or something. The best
Yeah,
novels everybody should read.
yeah,
They do that for comics too, and I've gone
yeah.
on for a few of those. Um, I'd have to
I
see.
think I also stumbled upon that. And okay, all 100 might not be, but you would get good 20, 30 nuggets out of those, which would really be worth it.
Oh,
So in comics, I also stumbled upon something like that. And that's when, I just lined up a lot from the library just to, read through. While in this pandemic, I think that's a good respite for me that I can, just read books as much as I can, which was otherwise, just going downhill in regular, normal lives.
yeah. I don't know how well you can see a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's animated cartoons, which I don't mind that either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are you kidding? Jeez. Yeah, they have good ones, but when you want to find them, you can never find them.
That's right.
Here we go. Oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've read a lot of comics. So there's a lot of stuff here that I've never read that I would love to read someday.
Yeah, actually, I'm like looking at something familiar, but not able to. Yeah, there's mouse. Mm. Sin City. So basically, a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It's comic cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there we go. Oh, is that the same one? Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I have ideas in mind for what I think I would like to cover, but yeah, we'll have to see.
Great, David. So I'm definitely going to look forward to the next time that we just have this discussion again. Uh, Slightly having a
Yeah,
bad throat. So.
I haven't read Beautiful Darkness. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
that might be an interesting. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. So if you have that link to share, do share it with me. I'll just go through it before that.
Yeah, it's on the calendar.
Okay, okay. So I'll go through that.
Yeah.
Great then. So we'll meet next time then. Next
Okay.
Friday, is it right?
Okay, Shreya. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
catch you next
Nice
week.
meeting you, David.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night.